Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, grannies and gators. It is Tuesday, August 6th. Buckle up, folks. We've got scandal, maybe a little more scandal, a little bit of Trudeau perhaps lying. I'll let you guys be the judge of that, but we'll present some evidence and maybe answer some questions that he refuses to. So hold on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen. We've got kind of a bit of a grab bag. I'm going to show you some stuff about what's really going on in the Ukraine. That'll take about 55 seconds. We're going to take a little bit of a look at some BlackRock stuff that we shared in our tactical civics meeting last Saturday that I think is something that everybody should kind of be aware of. And I hate to say it, guys, but you can't get to the truth here in Canada without pissing somebody off. And for those that have been following here for some period of time that understand that the true depth and nature of what's going on, they're going to understand what we're talking about, and others that have misplaced faith and hope are probably going to be upset. These days I seem to be defending myself more against PPC and conservative minded folks than I do against those that are really our enemies. So I know it sounds repetitive, guys, but we really need you to like and share these shows. They are making it incredibly difficult for anybody to access anything that we're doing or anything that we're talking about. And while folks are still coming in and going through the sharing and making sure that your notifications are turned on, that's important too, because they will just help you out and go and turn off your notifications to make sure that you're not finding things. For people on Rumble, we've got something special for you guys, especially if you're on a desktop device. If you go into the click on the smiley face and instead of the emoticon section, and you type capital WUC up into the search bar, you'll get this emoticon will show up there. So something that's kind of just fun that I wanted to explain to folks. I've had some people that have started to figure it out, started to use it. Just something to have fun with the community here on Rumble. We'll probably add a few more of those, but let's get into some of this insanity, guys. No, things are not getting worse. They are just becoming more obvious. And the more obvious it becomes, the more people, particularly in this gallery, that people can, happily go and corroborate for themselves, that are directly connected to or plugged in or servants of the usual suspect, Klaus Schwab. We're going to be looking at some of those kinds of things and how this guy here has come to be who he is. And there's a lot of debate about him and discussion about him canceling the CBC. Oh my goodness, no. Well, it is absolutely part and parcel how he has become this communist dictator. So we're going to take a look at a little bit of gaslighting. I've got some random bits of video that I've picked up over the last little while. I'm kind of like this little kleptomaniac out there. When I find things that I'm sure are going to disappear, I grab onto them and I bring them back here. And when I get enough of them together, I can put them into something that kind of makes sense. We're going to touch on some of that, but keeping in mind that as per the rest of this community of the Liberal caucus that are all tied to Klaus Schwab and the hashtag WEF Fourth Reich. We heard from James the other day where everybody is fighting about who is going to have access and who's going to make the most money through the next industrial revolution of bioweapons and their concoctions and those kinds of things. And we saw some graphs, and Canada's in a hotspot zone for, and this is what we're referring to is, another jab manufacturer, and we're going to take a look at a report that I just came across today. And it's going to be the longest video that I'm going to play for you guys today, but I think it's critical because people are searching, to make sense of why all of this insanity, and the unemployment situation has really reared its ugly head. And I think that, well, I mean, we all know here that this is 100% by design. And I think that I've got a new hypothesis on how this unemployment is actually the tool that they're going to use to implement universal basic income and CBDCs based on their current solution to unemployment. So we're going to dig into that, and I'll explain what I'm talking about. And I think you're going to see how, regardless of how much we fight back, they already have in their minds a conclusive path to implementation of the CBDCs and the universal basic income. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. But this is, I want everybody to keep this in mind. From Philip K. Dick, the basic tool for the manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words. Yes. If you can control the meaning of words, you can control the people who must use the words. Tomorrow, I would be digging into Bill C-63 and what they're now saying out loud, what we were covering earlier yesterday and last week about Bill C-63, and what the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has he's using the words of basically Bill C-63, and we need to be aware that this is 100% on its way here, and it's literally propaganda and censorship. Is one dies without the other, so they must have both propaganda and censorship. We're getting pretty good at recognizing, spotting the propaganda, and we're going to dig into some of that in the gaslighting. But this is a quote that I think everybody should keep in mind and understand what we're talking about. And this sets up this little tidbit that I thank you, Tiana Truth Seeker. She put this, she spoke about this and has been speaking about this, but I managed to grab this graphic and use this. So all credit to Tiana on this one. I'm not sure where she dug it up, but I'm going to read through this really, really quickly. It's going to be kind of a speed show tonight, guys. So enjoy it. There's going to be some stuff here that I'm going to be covering that you're probably going to want to make clips of. But before I get into that one, I'm going to play this 1 minute video for everybody here, and wait till he gets to some of the new scandal.
Very accurate when he explained the herd mentality versus the higher human. Herd mentality has a need to fit in. It obeys. It's afraid of judgment. It executes orders. It likes comfort. Herd mentality believes in what the majority says, even if it goes against their personal values. But Nietzsche also described a subcategory of the herd mentality, which is the slave. And the slave is not the same thing. The slave is weak and wants to destroy the higher humans under the false pretense of equality and whatever their master tells them is best for the herd, because they are too sick to think for themselves. On the flip side, the higher human doesn't care about that. They have a mission. They are creative. They must be free from the herd. They are noble, often alone, and they will suffer greatly for what they believe is their calling. In other words, you can say that the herd got in line to get vaccinated, the slave shamed the people that didn't get vaccinated, and the higher human never got vaccinated.
So that was an interesting perspective, and that is the manipulation that they have weaponized. And at the end of the day, we're going to show where it comes back full circle to how Justin Trudeau is losing grip. You guys are going to love that. But now we're going to get into the useful idiots part of this. And as always, guys, yeah, I see somebody mentioned it in there. I do want to throw this out there, guys, because this is important. Everything that I use in a show, whichever show it is, any resource link video. I make sure that it is in my Substack, and that's down below here where you can find that. I'll leave that up here for you guys for a little while. I bring all the receipts and give you guys all of the information, all of the documents, all of the links, all of the graphics, everything is there. So now to some of the useful idiots. Recall that Hillary, and we're speaking about Hillary Clinton, who did her college thesis on Saul Alinsky's writings. And so Saul Alinsky died about 43 years ago, but his writings influenced those in political control of our nation today. I'm reading this for the 4x2s out there, the people on their small devices. Be tough to read, so I got you. I got you guys. He died June 12th, 1972. Carmel by the Sea, CA, Education, University of Chicago, spouse, Irene Alinsky, books, Rules for Radicals, Reveille for Radicals. Anyone out there think that this stuff isn't happening today in the U.S.? All 8 rules are currently in play. How to Create a Social State by Saul Alinsky. There are 8 levels of control that must be obtained. I'll let you guys decide after this where we are, and I want to hear. Throw it into the chat, please. What level you guys think we're at? So these 8 levels that must be attained before you are able to create a social state. The first is the most important: healthcare. Control healthcare, and you control the people. The beer bug showed us that. Poverty. Increase the poverty level as high as possible. Poor people are easier to control and will not fight back if you are providing everything for them to live. 100% dependency on the state. Got a pretty big amount of that, and we're going to expose a whole bunch more that y'all didn't see coming. So we got number 1 and 2 ticked off. Debt. Increase the debt to an unsustainable level. That way you are able to increase taxes, and this will produce more poverty. Have we ever seen a government more obsessed with implementing taxes? Nope. I think we got that covered. So gun control. Remove the ability to defend themselves from the government. That way you are able to create a police state. Well, pretty much got that. And one might even argue that our police state has become a militarized police state, thanks to Mr. Bill Blair. And yeah, that's a whole other story. Welfare. Take control of every aspect of their lives. Food, housing, and income, whether you like it or not. It's for the children. We must feed the children and cut out the parents and decide what the children. Don't get me started. So, okay. So far, we're up to number 5, guys. Education. Take control of what people read and listen to. Take control of what children learn in school. No comment. I don't dare. Religion. Remove the belief in the God. I like the way they wrote that. Remove the belief in the God from the government and schools. I think that it's safe to say that after burning more than 100 churches and jailing pastors habitually, that our government has done everything possible to justify the destruction and remove the belief in God from our society. So, okay, is any one of them that Trudeau hasn't overachieved on yet, guys? Class warfare. Divide the people into the wealthy and the poor. This will cause more discontent, and it will be easier to take tax from the wealthy with the support of the poor. And that's pretty much Jugmeat meets Muppet, that dude's role, screaming about rallying up his base to go after the rich people. But at the end of the day, it's rich people that are able to start businesses, create jobs, create manufacturing, and they know that. And this is what they've removed from Canadians, the ability to do that. And they only provide that opportunity for people that don't originate here in Canada or have a personal or emotional or social investment in Canada. So, okay, I think that class warfare is uh, pretty much there. Oh, sorry to hear that, Aaron. Click on the link down below the show on Facebook in the notes, and that might help you. And the Rumble's been kind of fidgety the last little bit, but yeah, this is why we're streaming on, strangely enough, Facebook, trying to wean ourselves and bring our community over to safer viewing places. YouTube as a backup, only because they don't restrict me when I publish as a podcast, but if I do it as live streams, they restrict me. X, Instagram, Rumble, of course, and Wimkin, streaming live and as well on whatsupcanada.org. If all else fails, guys, go to whatsupcanada.org or lgm.news every single day, and you will have no interruption with your stream. You'll be able to watch it there. 2 clicks to content. Don't even ask. You don't have to log in. You don't have to do anything, but it'll always work on that platform. So I think we've got all 8 tiers established under Saul Zelinsky's 8 rules for radicals, or his rules for radicals. The playbook is complete. Does any of this sound like what's happening to the United States or Canada or the UK or Ireland or France, or I digress? Alinsky merely simplified Vladimir Lenin's original scheme for world conquest by communism under Russian rule. Stalin described his converts as useful idiots. The useful idiots, meat muppets, have destroyed every nation which they have seized power and control. It is presently happening at an alarming rate in the US, and I think we can safely say in Canada as well. So the interesting part of this is that, you know, insanity is unsustainable. If you've been around for a while, you've heard me say that time and time and time and time again. And, you know, sooner or later, when we get to the business of fixing things correctly, the insanity will end. There's some extremely differing ideas of how to fix our country, and this is kind of where I'm going to piss people off a little bit. I don't want to be right, guys. I don't do this to be right. I do this because people are being lied to left, right, and center, and at everywhere they turn, they're being gaslit and being used. And you know, I hate to say it, but it's literally both sides of the fence are equally as perilous to our society. So before I trigger everybody, I'm going to let everybody get a little triggered at Mr. Trudeau first, so that you guys will understand a little bit better when I explain the other part that's going to tick everybody off. So I'm just going to play. I got a couple of little clips here, going to kind of bounce around a little bit between some of these clips, and the clips themselves will start to lay out the thesis for why I think they've got us by the short hairs and we're not going to be able to stop the CBDCs and the UBI. But this at least is a glimmer of hope. Whether it's a random act of journalism, I think, I truly suspect that's what this is. But this is an interesting question put to Trudeau, and we're going to touch on some of that.
The political system of Canada was brought up as another key issue. There has been a great deal of worry on this matter among both residents and politicians in Canada, and the intelligence agencies have been placed on high alert. Trudeau was questioned by the reporter over the recent all-party report on foreign interference. The reporter inquired about the integrity and transparency of the study, which was primarily concerned with the Prime Minister. During his speech, Trudeau underlined the significance of striking a balance between transparency and national security. He made the point that the disclosure of particular information could put the safety of persons who are gathering intelligence at risk and could be advantageous to those who have the intention of causing harm to Canada. His evasive comments, on the other hand, gave the impression that he was attempting to avoid taking responsibility for the matter rather than addressing it in a sincere manner. For the purpose of conducting a comprehensive examination of the findings of the report on foreign intervention, Trudeau advocated for an independent investigation to be overseen by a judge. He said that rather than accepting his word for it or the word of any other politician, Canadians should rely on this independent body for an objective evaluation. In spite of this, the reporter maintained his skepticism and continued to press Trudeau for additional specifics and clarity, neither of which he failed to deliver. As a result of Trudeau's evasiveness, viewers and analysts became even more suspicious of him. They believed that his unwillingness to provide answers that were unambiguous was an indication that he might be concealing something. Throughout the course of the conversation, one of the constant themes was the public's right to know about the integrity of Parliament and the potential compromises that could be made by foreign states.
I think PDS, I think you're trying to ask if I'm winding you up. Oh yeah, I am absolutely going to be winding you up. So now I'm going to answer that question for Mr. Trudeau. Now, Mr. Trudeau has been obfuscating to the best of his ability, including being held in contempt by the parliamentary rules and by the ethics and everything else about who the 11, and everybody's focused on the 11 now, the 11 compromised officials in Parliament. But the reason, the number one reason, and people are starting to, because it's like a smack in the face for some, even, people that were, part of the sane but skeptical support on the left are figuring out that it's not just CCP China or India or some of these terrorist nations that are guilty of committing basically treason or helping to establish treason, because if the same rules were applied to what they want answers to, they want to know who the 11 are. Any of the 11 has done nothing more than any of the rest of the people that you see in front of you, is my point. Foreign influence and foreign meddling are happening at every level. It's not just China. It's not just India. It is the World Economic Forum and their quote unquote public-private partnership. Guys, that is by definition fascism. The fascism is the tool for the communism and the Marxism. And what is it all about? Profit, 100% profit. So that's the answer to why Trudeau is hiding who the 11 are. And it's mind-bending to me how many people still can't connect the dots on what foreign meddling, foreign interference, and treason is, and apply that same formula to what the Liberals and all of those other 30 some odd people. All 336. I think at this point, all 338. Yeah, there we go, Steve. 338. I think at this point, without a single one of them actually taking the risk, and this is where it's going to get unfortunately difficult. No, I'm not ready to give you guys this yet. Y'all are going to be so mad at me. We're going to take a little bit of a detour. Let's take a 1 minute stop in Ukraine, shall we? And remember that graphic I showed you about Trudeau and the the new bioweapons facilities? All right, well, keep that in mind for this 55 seconds.
Going on in Ukraine?
Another head hangs slowly, child causes silence. Who are we mistaken? But you see, it's not me, it's not my family. In your head, they are fighting with their tanks and their bombs and their drones. In your head, they are crying.
What's really
That's a whole lot of billions of dollars, guys. Pharmaceutical, bioweapons, security. And who has brokered all of this? This is the same companies that provide the advice to our liberal government, the people's in control, through the McKinseys, the Deloittes, the S&C Lavalins. This is how we get that. Should I play? Should I play that again? Let me see a couple of thumbs up if you want me to play that again, and listen to the music too, because at the end of the day, these are the reasons why when our governments and the people that falsely represent our governments take part in all of this, they destroy these other nations. And where do those people end up? Right here. And what are those people here doing right now? They're very, very angry and upset because what our infiltrated leadership has done has destroyed their countries. So now they're coming for what we've got. So I'm going to play this again and listen to it as
in Ukraine?
Another head hangs slowly, child is slowly taken, and the violence causes silence. Who are we mistaken? But you see, it's not me, it's not my family. In your head, they are fighting with their tanks and their bombs and their drones. In your head, they are crying.
I counted 38. 38. And I'll just go right into this next clip for you guys while that one's kind of sinking in. And again, of course, guys, I'll make sure that you guys can get all of this in the Substack tomorrow morning.
I figured out BlackRock's true purpose. Because the big banks have been controlling the world for decades before BlackRock came on the scene. Hundreds of years even. So what use do the big banks have for this new upstart company called BlackRock? Well, we've been doing a lot of research around this channel about how BlackRock works and what they are. And we've been learning how basically no matter where you look in the markets, BlackRock and Vanguard are the top shareholders of every company. And it doesn't matter what industry you look at, you're gonna find their names at the top of every list, even in competing industries like oil and gas and green energy. And all along, I've been working on a theory that there has to be some reason why BlackRock is useful to the big banks and the money that controlled the world long before they came along. And I think I figured it out. Here's a list of all the biggest banks in the US. JP Morgan is the biggest, and they control $3 trillion of assets. Trillion with a T. If you've heard of the S&P 500, what that is the 500 biggest companies in the American stock market. That's companies like Apple and Microsoft and Amazon, Tesla, ExxonMobil. This graph is showing all the companies in the S&P 500, and the bigger the box they have, the more money their company is worth. And Apple is the biggest one. All combined, the S&P 500 is worth $36 trillion. So, JP Morgan alone controls assets that are equal to almost 1/10 of more or less the whole US stock market, because the S&P 500 is most of the US stock market's value. That's a lot of power that JP Morgan has. But then imagine all of these banks all having similar interests and kind of being buddies and kind of getting along when they eat up all the smaller banks and keep control of the world for themselves. Let's not forget that a lot of the most powerful banking institutions of today came out of power systems that long outdate the United States of America. So why did they let this company named BlackRock come along and suddenly start controlling $10 trillion in assets? That's right. BlackRock controls more than 3 times as much assets as JP Morgan Chase does. And BlackRock was only founded like 30 years ago or something. The answer can be found in what BlackRock does. BlackRock manages funds like exchange-traded funds and index funds, which most of our retirement money is invested with. Most of the money that BlackRock and Vanguard are playing with in the market is actually ours. It's actually our retirement money and our index funds and our exchange-traded funds. You know, these banks seem awfully powerful when you see numbers like $3.2 trillion. But what if I told you that we actually have more money than them? That's right. And our power has been on the rise lately. In 2011, retail investors represented just 10% of the market. In 2021, retail investors were over 22% of the market.
I want to pause this just for a second here, guys, before it gets too far ahead on this, because there's some really great comments. Hey, Megs, it hurts my brain too. That's why I find the videos and let smarter people do the talking for me and share them with everybody. Mark, yeah, we covered what Warren Buffett was doing on last night's show. We started to look at what happened in Japan. Friday, I already warned Bryce in advance on Friday. We have a show called Bankers, Bandits, Bullion, and Bucks with Bryce, who's a financial whisperer, and I already pre-warned him that this coming Friday, he is doing all the talking. There's lots to talk about. So absolutely, this is all coming to a head very, very quickly. And so all of those, 38 companies that we just looked at that have taken all of our money in the Ukraine to invest in the Ukraine. That's how it's happening. Is this Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street? They're the ones that handle it, and it's McKinsey and Deloitte and those guys that set it all up for them. Oop.
$7.2 trillion of capital invested. And that's just the money that we're actually investing for ourselves. Do you remember what happened to GameStop? Money that average traders are putting into the market right now is more than double the money that JP Morgan Chase has in the market right now. But hold on, because it gets juicier. US retirement assets total up to $33.6 trillion. And surely, a big portion of this is the retirement funds of really rich people. But don't underestimate the power of numbers. There's a lot of normal people like us. And when you put those $33.6 trillion next to numbers like $3 trillion, you start to realize that we have an awful lot of power over these markets if we were going to wield it for ourselves. Problem is, these funds with companies like BlackRock and Vanguard, they wind up controlling almost 40-30% of the assets in the marketplace. It's complicated, and it depends on which numbers you go by. Like, retirement accounts account for about 30% of the market. That's because a lot of retirement accounts are invested with things that are not stocks, like commodities or like bonds. But let me remind you that the S&P 500 is only worth $36 trillion. And if we weren't putting all of our retirement money away with a company like BlackRock or Vanguard, and we were the ones investing in these companies and then voting those shares because we were educated investors, it makes me wonder if we would vote to have people like the CEO of General Mills get paid $15 million a year. Makes me wonder if we would put up with our pharmaceutical companies pulling this kind of shit on us if we had a huge amount of voting power in those companies with our shares. But we're not, because most of our retirement money goes to BlackRock or to Vanguard so that they can invest it for us into the market, and they can have all the share voting rights that goes with all those shares. And all these banks can keep being the biggest players in the marketplace and controlling how it all works. I wonder how much all these banks total up to. Why don't we add up the top 8? Little math here, came out to this. This is in millions, by the way. Let's make it into trillions so it's easier to see. Divide that number by 1,000,000. And in total, the top 8 banks control $12.14 trillion in assets, all combined. I'm sorry, 12 trillion? Yo, you guys are small fish. We're out here trading. Power to the people, motherfucker.
All right. Well, so the point that I wanted people to understand, this is directly how they are extracting our wealth and making people think that we are the minority, and we are suppressed. And yeah, this is what they want us to think while they are pillaging our societies through corporate crime, corporate treason, and also one of the biggest reasons why you'll see on the bottom of the corner there, you'll see my Patriot Switch .com Let Me Free logo there. This is why I love this company so much. This reason, above all else, is our founding partner was labeled the eighth most dangerous man in America because he would not capitulate to BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. And to this day, we remain 100% American owned and managed and supplied. And we are a big chunk of some of those many millions of dollars that is not going to Vanguard, State Street, and BlackRock. So, where are we going to get to next here? I see some people commenting about the financial markets, and I don't want to talk beyond my expertise or my knowledge on this, but for people that can't wait to hear from Bryce on Friday, I've got a couple of links that I'll add to the Substack tomorrow, where I've had other guests over the last couple of years tell us what's coming, and that if we wanted the early warning sign when it's going to happen, and when it's going to happen big, when it's the threats to our economy here, they always tell me, watch Japan. When Japan crashes, the rest of the dominoes will start to fall. So I've got a clip from the Rebel Capitalist here. I'm not gonna play this one tonight. Got more coming up. But the things that we've been trying to help people get organized and their communities fortified, I don't know that we've got much more runway, but it's going to do. It's going to get interesting. That's why the title of the show is "Buckle Up, Folks." It's going to start to be a bumpy ride. So before I actually trigger everybody yet, I'm still hesitant to do this part of the show, but so I'll stretch it out a little bit longer and give folks a little bit more. A little bit more scandal of our liberal government. All right.
To right. Justin Trudeau's so-called modernization of Canada's broadcasting regulations has turned out to be nothing more than a half-baked attempt to prop up outdated systems while completely ignoring the needs of today's music industry. Patrick Rogers, CEO of Music Canada, summed it up perfectly when he expressed disappointment that the new rules, instead of focusing on supporting Canadian artists, are merely reinforcing the old guard of terrestrial radio. Can you believe it? After spending 3.5 years pushing for a regulatory system that would align with the modern music landscape, what we get is a throwback to policies that benefit old school broadcasters. It's baffling. The government's new rules, wrapped up in the Online Streaming Act, require streaming companies to fork over 5% of their Canadian revenues to support various broadcasting funds. On paper, it sounds like a good idea, $200 million in new funding for Canadian media. But let's dig deeper. This money is being funneled into areas like the Canadian Media Fund and diversity initiatives, which, while important, don't address the real issue at hand, the need to support Canadian artists directly in today's digital age. Rogers had hoped that the overhaul would tackle the realities of the modern music industry, particularly the role of streaming platforms in building artists' careers.
So now I'm going to leave this one at that, but I wanted to open that door of thinking, that as much as they're only addressing the music industry, it's full spectrum, and it's much bigger than just the money at stake here is hundreds of millions of dollars that Trudeau is trying to extract and extort from the media companies to recycle and launder back to the propaganda platforms of his choice. And so this one here, guys, I guess we are going to run a wee little bit longer than I thought, but I'm going to make you guys watch most of this one just because it's incredibly important, and this is going to tie into, I think, one of the unseen blind sides that's coming. We've talked about the where we're seeing the wage subsidies, where the government subsidizes 75% of all of these new Canadians that work in every retail job and, well, basically every freaking job in our society, and nobody else can get a job. And the government pays 75% of those. So if we take even just hillbilly northern swamp donkey math like I've got, 42% of the employed in Canada work in the public service sector. That's pretty significant. And the rest of the private sector is predominantly subsidized by our government. Wait till you get a load of this.
There's a potential employment and immigration scam happening in Canada right now that at best is subverting the Canadian labor market, keeping wages low, and at worst is a total scam, absolutely undermining our immigration and our employment system as they are at the expense of Canadians and the people being brought over. So I saw these allegations happening online. I started to do some Googling. I looked up some information. What I found was scary. I think it's worth sticking around to the end of this video. You guys can take away what you will from this information, but I found some really suspicious stuff. We're going to set it up first with this Bloomberg video because this will actually put it all into context for us. Let's get into it.
Well, let's go to the employment picture. Brooke Thackeray's got some thoughts there, and why the labor picture in both Canada and the U.S. could continue to deteriorate, notwithstanding the fact, Brooke, that unemployment rates in both countries have risen over the past year or so. What are your thoughts here?
Well, they're still historically low. And even Powell yesterday was mentioning in the press conference after the interesting announcement. He's saying, look, we're looking at employment, it's historically low, but there's other factors. There's a whole bunch of other different measurements as far as measuring unemployment. Like this morning, we had the initial jobless claims come out. That's an employment picture. It came out worse than expected this morning, which is affecting the markets a bit. But one of the ways I look at the labor market too is
So keep in mind, what these guys have just opened this video saying is the labor market is deteriorating, unemployment is increasing, and that it's, a concern that's happening right now, okay? So this is a trend. People, and you guys have talked about it in the comments, I've talked about it in other videos, a lot of Canadians are really struggling to find employment right now. It's taking them months. So remember this, because like I said, all of the research that I did and what I'm going to show after this is very important to see what these, economists are setting up here.
There's a lot of this, the numbers are getting confused with the part-time numbers of jobs. And so part-time jobs have been increasing and they get counted as part of the non-farm payroll number.
Right.
And so, the economy can be deteriorating and the numbers look okay because part-times are going up, but that's not necessarily a good thing. And so one of the ways I like to look at it is from employment from people that are usually employed full-time and currently have jobs. What's that metric doing? So we're just looking at the full-time measurement there on a year-over-year basis. And that's actually been going down. And that's actually a signal very often that when it gets to negative growth rate, that we are actually entering into a recession.
Okay, so here's another graph. You can see the baseline is the white horizontal line running through to the 0 point on the right-hand axis. The yellow shaded bars are periods of recession from 1990 through to the present period, and the white line, Brooke, is the rate of unemployment, correct?
For full-time,
full-time
employment, usually work full-time. That's what it is.
Okay, again, full-time employment. You guys should be able to see it here. There's just under my picture there, there's just a little bit of a dip in the graph. But right there, we can see a downward trend of full-time employment in Canada, which means we have more job seekers now in Canada. This is huge. Remember, again, because we're going to talk about this very strange stuff that's going on.
Oh, wait, Angry Gary, if I'm angering up the blood tonight. Oh, but wait, there's more. I promise you there's more. This is just going to get better. What Spencer's assembled here in this video, I think is huge piece of understanding exactly how they are going to have us screwed, guys. It'll make sense bear with it.
Going on, because if this is the case and unemployment is growing and people being employed is shrinking, we shouldn't have the problem that we have, which we'll get into. Again, we'll let these guys finish it up because I want all of the context there to go when we talk about this.
We go back and we look at 1990, that yellow bar there. You can see when that the employment went to zero. So on a year-over-year basis, and then we entered into a recession. That happened again in 2001. It happened again in 2008 as well. And then with COVID, it's so fast. But here we are. We've now crossed that zero line again. And we haven't entered into a recession. I mean, maybe it's because we've been whipped around because of the COVID numbers, but this is usually a sign that a recession is imminent when we're seeing employment actually decrease for full-time employees.
Full-time employment. Do you think that's the case? Do you think it sounds like you do not accept the so-called soft landing scenario that many investors are embracing right now?
I know that's the majority is the soft landing. I think that the numbers, the interest rate hikes that we've seen over the last couple of years are actually still working their way through the system. There's a lag, and I think it's inevitable.
So he does make some claims there about that we're going to end up in a recession and things are going to crash. That's not what we're talking about today. But what the important stuff is, we've been counting part-time jobs towards our employment numbers, but the actual numbers have been falling. So here's what I found really.
So now this is where it's going to really, really get good, guys. When he breaks this down on what he found. Oh, Sherry, it's even worse. It's worse. It's so much more corrupted even than that. But yeah, they're paying up to 75% of the new Canadian. I can't even call them that. Then the economic invaders are being funded 70% of their, or 75% even. But wait till you see what Spencer uncovers here over the next few minutes.
Interesting. Right here, and stick with me. I promise you, this is strange and weird. I promise you, it's worth sticking around. So, what we've been seeing an increase in, and a strange trend, is what's called a labor market impact assessment. You've seen it probably online as an LMIA, and what that.
So this is probably a brand new term to everybody, but don't forget it. This is going to make your brains go.
Is it's a document that an employer in Canada may need to get before hiring a foreign worker. A positive LMIA will show that there is a need for a foreign worker to fill the job. It also will show that no Canadian worker or PR is available to do the job. A positive LMIA is sometimes called a confirmation letter, okay? I wanted everybody to know what this is. So the requirements are there's no Canadian workers or PRs who can fill this role. You can now bring in a temporary foreign worker and they can work for you, likely at reduced wages because you're bringing in a foreign worker, but this is a role being filled by somebody outside of Canada. So unemployment is increasing. We have Canadians who are constantly saying they can't find jobs within months and all of these things. So I was Googling into this LMIA and I'm going, what is this? So I'm wanting to learn all about it.
Is this the red tape, quote unquote, that Pierre wants to remove to bring in more foreign workers? Just asking, for probably a couple of million unemployed Canadians. Is this the red tape that he wants to remove? Oh, but wait, there's more.
This tweet comes up from Riley Donovan. Struggling to find a job? Someone created a map of every employer who's been issuing positive LMIA assessments because they couldn't find Canadians. Now remember, hey, did you like the video yet? If you haven't, please like the video. It helps the video get shown to more people. If you like what we're talking about, you want to hang out for more videos, please subscribe. Love to have you on board. Let's get back to it. Foreign workers for because we do not have the specialized certified Canadians to fill the role. Okay, so I said, I'm going to look at this map and see what it is. So whoever did this map, shout out to you. It is just so the actual website, I'll link it in the video actually, but it's called lmiamap.com. If you take a look, you have this map of all of these proposals that have been done. And so I started to look up some of these companies because some of the names were weird, just Stark Group, never heard of them. Cinnamon Kitchen, never heard of them. So I'm going through Omcar Restaurants. Okay, so they need cooks and food service supervisors. We need international cooks and food service supervisors. That's strange, right? So I start looking up some of these companies I'm going through. Interesting, of course, you go down to Brampton and, we've got Bradford. Brampton in particular, which you guys should be able to see, had the highest amount that I saw. Obviously, I didn't count them individually, but it scrolled the longest out of every city. Dr. Ramadan El Suji medicine professional, nurses, aides, orderlies, patient service associates. Like, again, do we not have Canadians for any of these roles? JVS electrical contractors, accounting technicians. You're telling me that there's not a Canadian accounting technician who could get hired there? Like, it was all really strange. So what I did, so then I looked at why the LMIA processing fee. I was like, what does this actually take for a company to do? Because the big allegations that I saw, which led to me looking into this, was companies are selling these assessments to foreigners saying, hey, you pay me $10,000, you can come work for my company under an LMIA assessment. Now, these are all allegations, and I am not an investigative journalist. This was just me Googling. All of this information is public. Everything we are going over is public information that I found on Google. I did not have to do any private searching. So what we've got here is a processing fee of $1,000 for each position requested, and allegations that these positions are being sold for $10,000, $3,000. I've seen numbers alleged online as high as $40,000 that people are selling these LMIAs for. So what are these companies? I started to look them up.
Not only what are these companies, he's going to do a really good job of explaining this, and this is important, but I want to add a little bit more context to this. There is no guarantee that they're going to get their money back. If they don't get approved, they don't get their money back. So we have got these Canadian coyotes, if that's what you want to call them, that are pushing this and getting people to give them all of their money, up to $40,000, to come here for a promised job. And we'll take a look at how some of these jobs go and where they come from, or where they're being quote unquote created. But I want to keep folks to bear this in mind. And there was a comment on X asking if I thought Pierre was going to fix this. And this is critically important before I piss the entire conservative world off, to understand exactly what this machine is of human trafficking disguised as bureaucracy and migration. And at the end of the day, guys, the United Nations and the World Economic Forum only exist for one purpose, and that is to legitimize and capture human trafficking on the global scale and control 100% of every bit of energy and consumption on the planet. So this is all part and parcel of the same hashtag WEF Fourth Reich beast. This is just, all I'm showing you guys here is some of the machinery, the process of how they're doing this and making it normalized. And Spencer's done a great job on this. And so it's not even me saying it. This is just what he's discovered. So I'm only going to go through a couple more minutes of this here, and we're going to get into some of the other stuff that's equally critical to understand tonight.
One of the ones listed was the Maruti Empire, okay?
Maruti Empire?
What is this? The Maruti Empire? They need all of this stuff? What do they need to hire for? KFC, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, Subway, Esso gas stations, hotels. So for regular customer service workers, which, as we know, it's very rare these days to just have a conversation with a Canadian-born customer service worker, you need to bring in foreign workers for this. And why this is such a huge deal is this is wage suppression in real time. And now I'm not saying this company is doing this. I'm just saying
they're just
everything I'm saying today is just strange information I found, no allegations. But the principles of hiring foreign workers to staff your company means you're able to keep wages low. We can't find Canadians who want to do it. No, you're not willing to pay wages that Canadians are willing to work for and Canadians who want to do it. But on top of that, why are all these high school kids not able to get jobs? Because these roles are being filled by temporary foreign workers. So you got their management team. Oh, here's their great team from Maruti Empire who needed to bring over a bunch of international workers here. Okay, sure. And again,
You saw
not
that list
accusing
of
them
businesses that
of
they
being
run,
abusing
Subways,
the system.
Essos,
I just
hotels,
they
restaurants.
currently, with this public information, have active LMIAs open for food service workers and other positions.
So basically, all of those companies that this empire owns have LMIAs out there saying that only foreign skilled workers are acceptable for the jobs. Canadians don't qualify for these jobs. And so they're going to recruit abroad and bring more people in here. And once they come here, then Trudeau has committed to 70% of their income. So this is corporate invasion, invasion by the corporate elite.
Positions within their company. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So Stay Home Forever, another company, coincidentally has active. They're saying they cannot find any Canadians who want to work for their company. Again, relatively strange, right? So, here's their management team. We got the management team at Stay Forever Home. Okay. Strange. Again. So these guys weren't even the strangest ones. Those first two that I showed you actually looked like professional companies. Like, these look like real businesses that need employees. These guys aren't the ones who I'd say, first of all, I got no idea what they're doing. I'm not making any allegations or any claims. They do look like legitimate businesses that are operating.
I will claim that I could build one of these websites in about 2 hours.
However, I did find it interesting that they weren't able to find Canadians and had to bring in temporary foreign workers. That's all I'll say about those. These other companies, however, this one in particular, search engine optimization company with a website I had to look for. It was hard to find their actual website. It's called Omega Tech Source, random bad name of a company. No offense, guys. And so I'm going through, and these guys have the worst, most basic website with, we design, build, support, improve comprehensive range of IT information technology. But then when I looked into their services is SEO. And I'm going, well, that's not IT, technology. Like, you just could do an SEO as marketing, right? So it's like, this website doesn't even make sense, but these guys have LMIAs open for that as well, which I was like, okay, I don't know anything about these companies. Again, public information, these are all posted, but I just found it strange that this company was not able to find any Canadians to help work for them, and they needed to bring in temporary foreign workers. And so I looked up Harry Har Holdings Inc. because I'm trying to find, I'm going, who are these companies? I'm looking them up. They don't even have corporate websites, but the best I could find for these guys is that they are a gas station company out of Brampton. And again, for some reason, we can't find local Canadians to work at a gas station. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on because, yes, it was just strange. And again, no allegation.
He's not saying it. I will. It's money laundering, theft, and human trafficking. And the problem with this is that sooner or later, these people that have come here and given up everything, like probably this individual, becomes very upset when our government starts backing out of their promises and abandons them and leaves them here in Canada. And this is the class structure and divide, which what was that rule number 8 of Saul Zelensky's rule book, or rule book for radicalizing and capturing a nation. So I'm going to leave off with that one here. And it's good that people are starting to connect the dots and understanding that this is straight up, and I use this all the time, hashtag capital WEF, the number 4, and then TH Reich, because this is exactly where we are at. And by that, the WEF is responsible for bridging the public-private partnership between the United Nations and our government, where they have captured us through the pseudo fraudulent documentation and manipulation, lying to the public, propaganda, censorship to make sure that people don't understand, under the UNSDA, the United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda, and the Paris Accords Migrant Compact. Those documents, every single one of them, is treason. That is treason, where our elected, supposedly representatives, signed us off to carve up Canada under the auspices of the policy crafted and created in Switzerland. And the problem with this all is this leaves us absolutely lost in Russian roulette. And there is no difference at this point, regardless of what any politician tells you. They are lying at this point, and I feel bad for people that are so lost in hope and despair and desperate that Pierre is all we got to do is get Trudeau out. All we got to do is get Trudeau out. No, guys, that's not going to happen, and I'm going to have to prove it to people here again because I'm getting attacked by conservatives and PPC members, about this, and we'll talk about the PPC in a minute. But right now, people need to understand that when it came time to vote away Canada for this foreign policy that we didn't elect, we didn't ask for, didn't want, that we would turn Canada into the post-nation state, who all signed on to that? Right? This is the first sheet. Liberals 162 said yes. Conservatives 70 said yes. The NDP 36 said yes. Bloc Québécois 9 said yes. And that was where life went to hell in a handbasket in June 6th in 2017. And the guy that everybody thinks is going to save us is contractually obligated and said yes to the exact same policy that we hate our liberal government for, and everybody wants to blame on Trudeau and think that this guy is going to save us. And I am desperately screaming for people, if we do not hold his feet and make him demand to remove specifically these agreements, which he just recently said no. Just like 2 weeks ago, he was caught and somebody asked him, would he remove Canada from the Paris Accords? And he said no, just cut and dried, angry, no. So he is committed to fulfilling the exact same attaboy list as the rest of these other people on this other list that we take free liberties with. Pierre is equally obligated. He signed on the dotted line. And unfortunately, Max is never going to stand a prayer because nobody will trust him, because he is just another tyrant. He will not allow an actual leadership election. Let somebody else run for the leadership of your party, Max, the PPC. See what happens. You probably get some seats, but people haven't forgotten. And there's things about Max that people don't want to admit. And I hate being the one that's going to be put on the hot seat for stating facts and truth, because people don't like their feelings being hurt. And unfortunately, all of the outrage, all of the feelings, all of those things that people want to levitate at me aren't going to change a damn thing. Just because they're offended doesn't mean they're right. So Trudeau's obligated, Pierre is obligated, and Max, when you look deep enough and hard enough, and I really don't like talking about this because I actually like Max. As a person, as a human, I like Max. Just the way some people like Pierre, and Pierre will not tell the truth. He will say, oh, none of my members are going to Davos. Nobody cares if they don't get to go to Davos. That's just a ski retreat for these meat muppets. It's Switzerland that we have to cut out of this. It's the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the IMF, all of these multinational agencies that we didn't get to elect that are actually ruled and controlled by the OIC. Look that one up, the Organization of Islamic Coalition. So they are the ones that have manipulated over decades the United Nations to make migration the Sun Tzu conquering of a nation policy in our country, and people want to uh, be stuck on an emotional context and not believe that they're being gaslit. And both parties are absolutely 100% in on this. And I'm going to show some people that maybe not have seen this, what our media used to report pre 2022. And I saw a comment go by here about who was or was not the richest. Musk is not the richest uh, people or person on the planet. There's neither is Bill Gates. None of these meat muppets that they tell you are the richest people on the planet are in fact actually the richest people on the planet. They're not. It is, somebody guessed it right, people like David Thompson, who pre 2022 sold out to BlackRock, probably was one of the organizations that was reporting on all of the Nazi influence and money that Canada was investing in Ukraine since Trudeau came into power, and Chrystia Freeland got her anointment to the the exalted position of being infiltrated into Trudeau's cabinet. They've been filtering money out of Canada. And pre 2022, they probably would have told us a little bit about that. These are just clips from articles out of the mainstream Western media before 2022, and post since then. This is what we're getting now from Reuters, which we covered last week. I'm not sure which day it was. I broke it down on where Reuters gets their money from BlackRock, and now this is the message. And Reuters is one of the cornerstones of what the narrative will be for the world. They'll tell the other Mockingbird mercenaries, other media hired assassins, what to speak, and then they go forth and speak. So the real story, according to Reuters, the real story is the rise of a right-wing American MAGA influence thinking that has made Canadian conservatives, who used to be among the strongest defenders of Ukraine, turn their backs on something Ukraine needs in its hour of need, Trudeau said in English a little later, speaking after a meeting with top officials from the European Union. Trump, who is seeking re-election in 2024 as a leading candidate for his party's presidential nomination, has been sharply critical of the U.S. support for Kyiv, blah, 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 blah. We took a little bit of a look there before at what was actually going on in Ukraine and where the money is flowing through. And of course, we should not be surprised at why Trudeau is so upset by conservatives and blaming them, importing American excuses from America. It's all because of Trump, these radical far-right extremists. And no, they're not far-right, they're fed up. And this is a really great graphic that they use. Remember when I talked about the words and the control of people? This is going to be probably a little tough to read for folks, but it breaks down in a really good way. This is a slide, so I can't even make it bigger for you guys. Sorry about that, but I'll make sure it's in the Substack tomorrow, of course. And we'll just to cover the first one, when people use the word racist, people don't know what to do. They keep trying to be kind, but everyone calls them a racist when they say that migrants would be so much happier if they could stay in their own countries, as long as the poverty, economic collapse, and military disasters could be stopped. We've got to stop manifesting them. These psychopaths that have captured our country are making the economic collapse, the poverty, and the military disasters, all so that BlackRock can go in and do exactly what they're doing in the Ukraine. So this sheet is a really, really great tool that people can help and pass on and understand. And we can't allow these psychopaths to control us through the manipulation of their language. We talked about Orwellian speak, the gobbledygook, the nonsense, the manipulation, the neurolinguistics programming. We've been covering a lot of that stuff in the last while, guys, and specifically, so that we can be able to defend ourselves from being labeled fraudulently as far right. It's fed up. So every time you see one of the mainstream media outlets use the term far right to anything that objects to what is going on, specifically on X, at a community no. That is a lie. That is a malicious allegation. And at the end of the day, our media, the mercenaries in media, haven't got the right word for it. And this was a graphic. I'm going to finish off with a couple of slides here of relevance to all of this to kind of wrap it all up in a bow, guys. Is at the end of the day, what we're left with is, thanks to this graphic, to Tayana Truthseeker for this graphic, that is, ineptocracy. This is for the 4x2s. I'll read it for you. A system of government where the least capable to lead are elected by the least capable of producing, and where the members of society least likely to sustain themselves or succeed are rewarded with goods and services paid for by the confiscated wealth of a diminishing number of producers. Now, that is where they get us trapped. And when the markets collapse, and they inevitably will, whether it's this week or the next, or maybe they tread water for a little while. We've been looking at it for months as to how it's inevitable, it's unstoppable, and why, we covered last night, why even countries like El Salvador are moving towards BRICS. This piece came out from the Washington Post, and I only clipped these two graphics, because I wanted to highlight the point that the United States has economic sanctions on 1/3 of all countries in the world, and our government still pretends they're the good guys. You cannot be the good guys in all of that and not be up to something. Our governments are absolute syndicates. And the point that I wanted to make is that of all of these countries moving towards BRICS, America has more than 28,000 sanctions against Russia, and they are among the fastest growing economies on the planet. They're among the top 3 growing economies on the planet. So markets collapsing, everybody's leaving the petrodollar behind, the US dollar behind, de-dollarizing, moving towards BRICS, buying gold and silver, and people are just starting to figure out that in terms of actually leading to changes of regime, we don't really see that very much. And many critics will argue that, in fact, sanctions actually embolden and empower the people in charge. You know why? Because they adapt, improvise, and overcome. And people are getting real tired of bullies at every level. And even more so, they are getting tired of clowns. If you earn it, they tax it. If you spend it, they tax it. If you save it, they tax it. If you invest in it, they tax it. If you build it, they tax it. If you sell it, they tax it. If you live in it, they tax it. If you drive it, they tax it. If you eat it, they tax it. If you give it away, they tax it. When you die, they tax it. And then they waste it, right? So this is why, me personally, I do not have a dog in this fight anymore. As far as I'm concerned, there is no voting solutions to this. So this is a cute little poem that I read. We're almost done here, folks. So thank you for hanging out with me till the end tonight. I will not vote red. I will not vote blue. I won't vote at all, because that's how they maintain control over you. There are several candidates and sides, but all are the same, and they appear to be separate, so you keep playing the game. The few rule the many by belief alone. They want you to believe in their power so you don't see your own. The game is won by not playing at all. Dissolve the belief in their authority, and their whole system will fall. And on that note, all I can say to that is, come on, do an Iceland. Do an Iceland. Don't wait for that new party in Canada to force us to understand what Iceland even did. That's where we're going to be running into in this next election. So this is a huge part of why I don't believe there's a political solution. Even if Max was 100% genuine, he doesn't have the runway, because this election is going to be like none other Canadians have ever faced, because enough people in Canada actually do understand what Iceland did. And they're they're going to force the rest of us to get a real big old bannock slap and understand and get to know more about this. And this is some of the stuff that we'll be getting really deeply into in our tactical civics meetings. And it'll be every second Saturday. So not this coming Saturday. We'll have another one the Saturday after that. And just, some other little personal things that I thought would be great to throw into this. Buckle up broadcast. Tolerance becomes a crime when applied to evil, and I think it's time that people have to stop fearing what they're going to lose and come together on some anti-evil efforts. And for me personally, I do not need a safe place. I assure you, I am safe wherever I choose to stand because I don't fear any mortal man. And that's a meme I actually made, by the way, some time ago. And that pretty much describes me as well as I can possibly do. So this is why, go forth and, bravery begets bravery. And it's time, if we don't want extreme prejudice to come with us, and our nation to be destroyed, all we got to do is start to be a little bit braver and a little bit more organized and a little bit more coordinated. So on all of that, that was a lot, right? So tomorrow night, it looks like I remember, I think it was last time we covered some clips from Natasha Montreal. I've gotten a hold of her. She has been covering the what's going on the streets in Montreal. And I think she's going to, if we can make her tech work, she's going to join us for our guest interview tomorrow night, 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you double check that you are liked and subscribed. Get all of your extras and bonuses on Substack. All of these links will be in the show notes and the Substack as well. If you want to contact me, if you're a whistleblower, if you got a great story, contact at whatsupcanada.org. And most importantly of all, guys, whether it is me or whoever it is that you trust that is sticking their head up, fighting this censorship monstrosity beast and standing up and giving you the information that you can trust and that you can get every single day reliably, and they are working hard for you in this war for humanity against the media mercenaries. Support them. They are the most important people that I can endorse. Whether it is me here on this platform, it's been really hard to get through to a bunch of you guys to let you guys know they've kept us away from being able to stream, but slowly but surely, the people win. God wins. And if this is a platform that you believe in and want to help stay in the fight, this is the best way that you can help. If you can, if you feel like buying a coffee, if there's value there, you can subscribe and on Substack and choose to pay. Substack is free, but you can pay for $6 a month, I think is what it costs there. So it's like 40 cents an episode for what the work that I'm doing here, or you can send a donation over there. If you want to learn more about how we are taking on the BlackRocks and the corporations and, that power that we talked about early on the broadcast, let me know that you're interested in the Tactical Civics program, and we're putting together the next one for that. So tomorrow is Natasha Montreal. I love you guys all. Stay mighty, my fellow patriots and hostages. And I guess we will see you guys all tomorrow. But don't forget to check out our Patriot Switch partners. I just got my stuff today. I couldn't be more thrilled. And yeah, good stuff is coming. The more we work together, the better we get, the more powerful we get. All right. I love y'all. See you tomorrow.